In today's video, special viewer request: does AI know how to tune your RC drift car? And if you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Troy. This is RoadsideRC. You'll tend to find me bashing or crawling or drifting or racing, plus doing product review videos and how-tos. And this is a viewer special request. One of my passions is to help people get started in RC drifting. But it turns out a lot of people have been turning to the AI chatbots to get some tuning advice. Are they taking my job? Like, is that what's happening here? We're gonna ask my ChatGPT here to provide some questions that people commonly ask it, and then what are those answers? And I am going to see if I agree or disagree. Let's get started by powering up this AI. I said, viewers are telling me folks are coming in to get recommendations and want to look at how reliable this information is. What are the questions that people are asking ChatGPT specifically? And it came up with this list of 10 most commonly used questions. That is what we're going to go through. A couple of these are still like nonsensical, which I think might actually be one of our findings as we do this study here today. But we're going to go through a few of these. And just to be clear, as we get this started, I'm not an AI hater. That's not where we're coming from on this. I actually use AI on a regular basis to help me tweak my video titles and give me some ideas for search engine optimization and things along those lines. The first question that ChatGPT said is the most commonly asked question is, how much gyro assist should a beginner use, and how do I tune it down over time? Interesting. Okay, I can see that. I can see that that is a common thing. I think that a lot of people get confused with this gyro gain and how much to use it and how to tune it and all that. So that makes sense. What does ChatGPT say is the answer to that?
If you're just starting, set your gyro gain around 50 to 60%. That's enough to smooth out your steering without making the car feel like it's on rails. As you get more comfortable controlling countersteer yourself, lower it by about 5% at a time. The sweet spot is when the gyro's helping you catch slides, but you still have to do most of the steering work. Too high and you'll feel disconnected. Too low and you'll be chasing the tail all night.
Oh, that is interesting. Okay, so what does it say? It says start at 50 to 60%. Just blanket statement that says start at 50 to 60%. Then as you get comfortable, continue to lower it down until you're doing a lot of the work. That's an interesting idea. I think it's clearly parroting back what you do here on some of the message forums. There is no one right gyro percentage for all car setups and all gyro gains. And then there's nothing saying that lower is actually better. This is something that I joke with some of my counterparts at the drift track all the time. They will buy these super fanciest GYD 550 gyro, and then after they get used to it and after they get really better, they'll tune it down into like a 30% gyro gain kind of situation. And I said, look, you're paying all this money for the fanciest gyro known to man and then using as little of it as you can. That doesn't make any sense to me. Unlike my peers at the drift track, I actually tend to have, I think, the opposite view, which is if you're gonna pay all this money for these super fancy gyros that do all of this amazing work, why don't you use it? Why don't you use it? Why don't you use it? So what I will tend to recommend for any beginner is you tend to make sure that the gyro works appropriately. And then to set your initial gyro gain, you pick a number. Maybe 50 to 60% is a fun number to start with. Thank you, ChatGPT. You start there at that number, but instead of worrying about dialing it down, you actually go the other way. I actually suggest maybe 5% is a great number. You jump 5% increments up until you get into a gyro wobble, right? So that means usually not mid-corner, usually between corners, the front tires will wobble back and forth. That means the gyro gain's been set too high and you need to start backing it down off of there. But then otherwise, we have these fancy gyros. You might as well use them. It makes the experience a little more relaxing, if you will, and you just go for it. And you just have fun at basically the max gyro gain that doesn't get you wobble. Now, if your personal preference is different, which it turns out thousands and thousands of millions of humans out there, everybody's a little bit different. If you want to run less because you want to do more of the counter steering, then that's an option that you have. And that's why the ability to tune the gyro gain via your controller is actually the most important part, because then you can easily adjust it, drive it, see how it fits for your driving style. Something where when you try to do it with a little potentiometer, it's just really hard to do. So question number 1, what kind of grade do we give ChatGPT? Honestly, I'm going to give it a solid B, maybe even an A-. I think the guideline of where to start is pretty solid. The guideline of how much increment you should jump, pretty solid. The guideline of you need to just always focus on reducing gyro gain, nah, I don't like that one very much. So maybe it's a 2/3, yeah, maybe a B, maybe solid B here. So let's get involved in question number 2. Question number 2 of most commonly asked questions to ChatGPT about RC drifting. What's the best starting camber and toe setup for drifting? This may be one where we're setting up ChatGPT for fail, because honestly, camber may be an appropriate question. Toe, I'll give you my thoughts later. Let's see what ChatGPT has to say about it.
Starting camber. Front wheels around -2 degrees to -3 degrees negative camber. Rear wheels, usually slightly less negative, about -1 degrees to -2 degrees. Negative camber helps the tires maintain better contact patch during cornering and sliding, giving you smoother control. Starting toe, front wheels, 0 degrees to slight toe in, about +0.5 degrees to +1 degrees, to keep the car stable and responsive on turn-in. Rear wheels, 0 degrees to slight toe out, around 0.5 degrees to -1 degrees, to help the rear end break loose and slide more predictably.
We're going to have to break this one down a little bit. So let's start with the camber piece, because that's the easiest one to talk about here. And we start with the rear. It says start with a -1 to 2 degrees. That's actually pretty good. I'm going to give them a thumbs up on that suggestion. What you'll typically be looking for is how to maximize the contact patch of your rear tire. But you have to watch for, does it change a little bit during compression, during roll? And yes, for most RC, rear-wheel drive RC drift tires out there on the market, something in that -1 to -2 degree standpoint is actually pretty decent. The front here is where I believe they get it very wrong. So it says you want about a -2 to a -3 degrees of camber. Here's the problem. You'll tend to gain camber through the arc. So I find that anybody online recommending a specific camber while the car is sitting straight is actually very misleading. Do you mean the camber when you actually set that tire to straight, and where exactly is straight? Do you set it when the front wheels are centered, in which it's usually out just slightly? But all of that doesn't really matter, because we don't drive straight a whole lot. We tend to drive somewhere over here. And so that's the place that we really care where the camber is. And what you want for the front of your vehicle, what you want here is you want this tire to be basically flat at whatever your drift angle is. That's where you care about your camber. Whichever is the leading tire needs to be flat in drift angle. So I would say rear wheels camber, ChatGPT gets a yes. Front wheels camber, ChatGPT, big fail. Here's the other problem, is when we get into the toe piece of it here. So it says front wheels slight toe in. So if we look at the car from the top, what it's suggesting is that these wheels should actually be pointing in towards each other from the front. That is wrong. That is very wrong for a rear-wheel drive RC drift car. That is the opposite. It is going to be towed out, if anything, but potentially almost as close to straight as possible. Again, we don't care a whole lot in the static straight range. What we care about is the Ackerman and how open the Ackerman may or may not be through the steering range. That's what you really care about. Toe influences that, but I have never seen somebody who has wanted a toe in on the front of their RC drift car from a rear-wheel drive RC setup. And then on the rear wheels, it says you want a slight toe out. That is also actually the opposite of what you would want. You tend to, most rear-wheel drive RC drift cars tend to have a slight toe in on the rear to help with stability, and then it's just up to you as to how aggressive you want to be with how straight you make them. On this car, this is my Red Cat RDS, I've actually made the rear wheels 0 camber in order to help get as much traction going that way as possible coming out of the corners. And then it does make it a little bit less stable mid-corner, or like, you know, while you're in drift. If you tie in some toe, it'll tend to make it a little bit more stable and easy to drive. So when we asked ChatGPT about camber and toe setups for drifting, they kind of got one of them right, rear camber. They got the other 3 actually very wrong. So on this one, I'm going to give this one a big old fat F on this question. If you use this to tune your rear-wheel drive RC drift car, you're going to have a miserable time. Third most common question asked to ChatGPT about rear-wheel drive RC drifting. Why does my car spin out halfway through a drift? Ooh, that's a good one. Also, I like that question. It's a very common new person question. I like that again. ChatGPT's answer.
A car spinning out halfway through a drift usually comes down to a few common causes. 1. Too much throttle. If you're applying too much power mid-drift, the rear tires lose traction completely, causing a spin instead of a controlled slide. 2. Incorrect throttle modulation. Not smoothly managing throttle through the drift can upset balance. Sudden throttle changes can break rear grip abruptly. 3. Poor weight transfer or balance. If your car's suspension setup or weight distribution isn't tuned for drifting, it might suddenly lose grip in the middle of the slide. 4. Insufficient countersteering. Not steering enough to match the slide angle will let the rear swing out too far, spinning the car. 5. Surface conditions. Slippery or inconsistent surfaces can cause unexpected loss of traction mid-drift.
Let me explain spinning out a different way, and then we'll see if that means that you think these 5 answers from ChatGPT are actually correct. So let's pretend in this situation we are drifting this direction. Whee! Here we go, we're drifting. What ends up happening when you spin out is really one thing happens. The rear end is rotating around the front, and it rotates around faster than the front end is going. Okay, so one of the 2 things has happened here. So basically what that means here is you have overgone the amount of steering and the amount of drift that the front can handle. So 2 things are very frequently caused by this. If you have a front tires that only have this much steering angle, then you can only ever travel at that much of an angle for drifting. If you try to go over that angle, then that tire's not going straight anymore. That tire's starting to slide sideways, and it spins out because it provides extra traction there. That's where the extra steering angle comes in, so that instead of spinning out, the car will actually continue to move forward. So they said that one of the things is insufficient countersteering. Number 4 was insufficient countersteering. That is correct. It doesn't necessarily mean it's all about the steering on your radio. It's about how much countersteer does the chassis actually have. This is very important. How do you get in that situation? If you're driving with very little throttle, you'll tend to find that you're driving at very shallow drift angles. And the more throttle you use, a lot of the times, more aggressive you are with the throttle, the more angle you'll get. So exactly what they said. Too much throttle, incorrect throttle modulation, 100%. Have you ever seen somebody run around the track just like trying to go full throttle? Ooh, I'm going to smoke the tires. Yes, and what do? They spin out. The other thing that we have a lot of the times is you have some folks, I like to call it the old nitro finger. They're doing this with the throttle. What the heck do you think is happening back here with these super powerful brushless motors and big amped ESCs and high voltage lipos? When you're doing this, you're making the whole car do one of these things non-stop because your throttle modulation is just all over the place. And so your car's going in and out of drift, you're transferring weight back and forth. It's wild, it's crazy. Your car's gonna have a struggle driving in that kind of a situation. Too much throttle, incorrect throttle modulation, insufficient countersteering. Dude, ChatGPT, good job on this one. I'll give you a solid like A on this one. The 4th most popular question that people are asking ChatGPT for tuning advice with their rear-wheel drive RC drift cars. What's the cheapest upgrade that makes the biggest difference in drifting? Makes sense. Makes sense. We're all on a budget. We want to also, what's the biggest bang for buck?
The cheapest upgrade that often makes the biggest difference in RC drifting is usually better tires, specifically switching to high-quality drift-specific tires or even foam inserts designed for drifting. Why? Because tires are your only contact point with the ground. Good drift tires improve slide control, consistency, and feel without breaking the bank. Other budget-friendly upgrades with big impact. Upgraded servo. A faster, more precise servo improves steering response and control during drifts. Adjustable suspension parts. Simple shocks or arms you can tweak to fine-tune handling. Gyro upgrade or tuning. A quality gyro helps keep your slides smooth and predictable. But if you want to pick one, start with tires. Usually the best bang for your buck on grip and control.
So, hot take on this one. The tires is not bad. Tires is not a bad suggestion, especially you gotta match a tire to your surface. It's not necessarily that you need the highest quality, best quality tire, but it means that you need to match to your surface. So, as an example, when I'm practicing here in my garage, I like to use a super hard tire. I like to get slow. I like it to be slick. I find if you can practice on hard and slick surfaces, then anywhere else you go, you're fine. If you practice on a surface like a carpet and you get used to that, then you go to something slicker and you struggle. But overall, picking a good tire is a good, appropriate first step. So, okay, ChatGPT, I'm with you on that one. Upgraded servo is the next, is usually a good idea. Adjustable suspension parts like shocks and arms are fine. I don't know if those are what I would put as like the next on the list, but then a gyro upgrade or tuning. So servo, gyro, controller, I think is honestly the one here that they really miss out on. If you're buying a ready to run RC drift car, usually the controller is one of the biggest links in the whole thing. So overall, their first shot at a question, it's not bad. I'm going to give it a solid C. If it sounds like it's regurgitating like general knowledge without anything really there. So what's interesting is it then says, you want suggestions for specific tires or parts that fit your budget? Yes, please. So here's what it answered back without actually asking me what my budget was, which really sucks. So under tires, yeah, racing drift tires, HPI drift tires, RC four-wheel drive drift tires, and foam inserts. I don't know where they got that list from. I don't know if RC four-wheel drive even makes drift tires. I need to go do the Google sleuthing here real quick. But this is a horrible list of tires that I would not suggest that you choose from. I would choose MST, DS Racing, Yokomo, Rev D. Pick from one of those. Or best suggestion, find out what the spec tire is at your local drift track and buy a bunch of them. Servos, Savox or Power HD? No. Nope. Yep. No, we're not going to go for either one of those. Suspension and handling, it actually suggests aluminum arms and shocks from Hot Racing or GPM. Nope, neither one of those either. Stiffer springs or lighter oil for the shocks. Now, I'm stiffer versus shock tuning and all that. And that's an argument that needs to be out there. It is good. So, well, maybe give them Futaba GYD 450 or Hobbywing Easy Drift Gyro. Now, the Futaba GYD 450, 100% agree, is probably still to this day my favorite all-around gyro. Problem, it's discontinued. So maybe you can still find some out in stock somewhere, but it has been replaced. So that is a great suggestion that's just not feasible. And then Hobbywing Easy Drift Gyro has never been a thing ever in time, according to as near as I can Google the world. Hobbywing's never made a drift gyro. So it just literally just made stuff up here that doesn't exist in life. This is bad. But it asked me, it says, do you want specific recommendations based on the exact RC model that you have? So I said, sure. I have the Red Cat RDS as an example. And it suggests, yeah, racing drift tires. Hot Racing foam inserts. Nope, we don't run foam inserts. The same two gyros that are already a nope. Hot Racing arms, which they don't make anything for the Red Cat RDS. And then again, the Futaba GYD 450, which is a great suggestion. So on this one, talking about most budget, if you follow ChatGPT, you are staggeringly wasting your money. This is horrible. This is a full-on F. Failed F ranking for ChatGPT on upgrade parts recommendations. This is bad. This is really bad. If you follow this, you are wasting your money. I do not want you wasting your money. Fifth most common question asked to ChatGPT about learning about RC drifting: all-wheel drive versus rear-wheel drive. Which should a beginner choose and why? I get this question all the time from new folks, so it makes sense that it's in here as well.
For a beginner drifting RC car, I generally recommend starting with RWD, rear-wheel drive. Why? More predictable and easier to learn drifting basics. The rear wheels break traction first, making it easier to feel and control slides. Simpler mechanics. Less drivetrain complexity means fewer maintenance headaches and easier tuning. More common in drifting. Most real drift cars are RWD, so skills transfer better. Better throttle control practice. You learn to modulate power to maintain the drift, which builds strong fundamentals. RWD, all-wheel drive. Why beginners might avoid it initially. RWD can make the car more stable and easier to keep moving, but it's also less forgiving when you mess up. It tends to pull the car straight instead of allowing natural slides. More complex drivetrain means more to maintain and tune. Requires different techniques that can be tricky for newbies. Bottom line, start with RWD for better control and to build solid drifting skills. Once comfortable, trying AWD can add a new challenge and fun dynamic to your drifting experience.
It legit actually suggested rear-wheel drive starting with it. I did not. I kind of wondered if it would start with all-wheel drive, because that's what used to be the thing. That used to be the suggestion. So it actually suggests starting with rear-wheel drive, and honestly, some of the reasons why I think are pretty legit. Hey, good job. Good job, ChatGPT. Now, it does ask then, it says, do you want me to help you with a recommended beginner rear-wheel drive models or setups? Sure, that's fun. I'm wondering, what models, rear-wheel drive, RC drift models, does it think are the best? And here's what it says. 1, Red Cat Racing Drifter rear-wheel drive. Okay, so Red Cat does have a rear-wheel drive drift car, the RDS, which I don't know, maybe RDS, I don't actually know what RDS stands for. Racing Drifter, maybe that really is what it is, and it picked it up somewhere off the world. It says it's budget-friendly, ready to run, good for learning basics, has upgrade options, parts availability is solid. That, legit, great, number 1, okay, it's got a good start. Number 2, HPR Racing RS4 Sport. Thank you, ChatGPT, for finding a all-wheel drive car to start your beginner rear-wheel drive drift cars. Well, what's number 3? Number 3, Tamiya TTO2DE. Okay, so it thinks that the TTO2 is a rear-wheel drive car. It's not a drift car. Yes, there are people out there who have converted their Tamiya TTO2s to rear-wheel drive. I also don't suggest doing that, even though I know I'm going to get a lot of hate from the Tamiya fans in the comments. It's fine. Don't do it anyway. 4, FMS 10th scale drift car. Guess what? FMS has never made anything related to a drift car ever in the history of it being a company. So ChatGPT is just dreaming things up. Number 5, Dramata Drift. Similarly, Dramata had an all-wheel drive 18th scale rally car, not a drift car. So they had the basic question right. Hey, maybe start rear-wheel drive. Hey, good. But then when you ask it to go a level deeper, you find out it has absolutely no clue what it's talking about. It either suggested all-wheel drive drift cars that are super outdated and not to be used, or making up things that never existed in the first place, or maybe with the Red Cat, maybe it's kind of trying to get it right there. This went from them getting like a solid B to, when you go a level deeper, this is a flat out F. If people read this and then just try to buy, if they even can find 2 to 3 of the things on this list don't even ever exist in the world, So if they try to find it, it wouldn't even find it. And then the two that are here that are legit vehicles, the HPI and the Tamiya, are not ones you want to buy. Dang it, ChatGPT. So here's the takeaway. The fundamental takeaway from this whole video is that ChatGPT is still not here to steal our jobs. And although, yes, I do use this same ChatGPT to help me with video title ideas and search engine optimization occasionally, it is for fact-based things on niche hobbies, it's not there. It's not there. It makes me scared about what people are doing and how they're using it. So the good news is I still have a reason to make RC YouTube videos, because this is not your answer. And now if you are curious about things that are true, where I have actually tested them back to back and built and done this stuff on my own, I will have a Drift Tech playlist pop up over here to your right. That's where I've done things and tested things. And so hopefully you can go look through those videos and find actual answers to your questions and get off of the ChatGPT and don't trust it. That's really the bottom line here today. So I hope this was useful for you. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. I hope to see you in one of these Drift Tech videos over here to your right. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.